It's June 30th, 2024. Wanted to do a quick tour of my garden. The fescue path is growing in pretty well, except there are a few patches where the seed didn't take and I have to plant more. I did mow it in the spring, but now there's a lot of seed heads coming up that make it look ugly. So I will probably mow it one more time and then just let it grow over the summer so it gets nice and long and floppy like you see in here. I like it when it gets like that. I planted it to create habitat for frogs and toads and snakes, and I've seen quite a few snakes this year, garter snakes, which is great to have in the garden because they help keep down pest insects. Let's see, so let's start here. We have beans. I'm growing several different kinds of pole beans and bush beans this year. These ones are dry kidney bean type that I'll leave those go until they're dried up and then harvest them. I won't have to pick them regularly like the others. Garlic, I have two kinds in this bed. I had allium leaf miner problems last year, so this year I put in the PVC, oh, there's a missed escape. I put in PVC pipe and covered it with insect barrier to try to keep them out. Oh, there's some more. Wow, I missed that whole variety. Oh, that's right. When I harvested scapes, these weren't ready. I'll have to come back out with clippers because they're too far along to break easily now. Anyway, so I had them covered with insect barrier, and it turns out that there were some in the soil when they came up inside the insect barrier, so this bed all got reinfected, unfortunately. They'll still be usable, but now I have the pupa in the soil and have to solarize that bed. Anyway, so flowers. You have some flowers coming up. Peppers. These are one of my favorite peppers, Gypsy. I got at least one fruit on all of the plants so far. I really recommend this plant, or this pepper, Gypsy. So I'm growing two different kinds of black peppers, or black tomatoes there. French tarragon's going crazy. I already cut it back earlier. I need to cut it back again. Eggplant's doing well. Not much flea beetle damage on this one. These are two different kinds of paste tomatoes. I really like the large fruited red paste tomatoes that are indeterminate. So these are two different kinds. Did have a pepper there that died. Have to replace it. Basil. More peppers. These are all new ones to me. So I'm looking forward to tasting them. Those should be good. These are two more black fruited tomato plants. These are some more peppers. These are ones I grew last year and saved seed from. They were supposed to be sweet peppers, but that's stocky red roaster in case you can't read my writing. They were supposed to be sweet peppers, and they were sweet, and they were tasted a good bit like sweet peppers, but they had a little bit of heat to them. We liked them, so I'm growing two plants of that again. Two more paste tomatoes, different varieties. Basils. These are little globe basils. I'm comparing two varieties again. Last year I compared them and I liked both of them, but this one flowered later, so I'll probably continue growing this one in the future. But I wanted to test them one more time. Parsley, another eggplant. Little bit of flea beetle damage on this one, but not much. Not as much as other times when I've grown them. More peppers. These ones are my favorite peppers so far of all the varieties I've grown. Carmen. Unfortunately, it's a hybrid. I wish I could find an open pollinated pepper that I like as much as these. Two more black tomatoes. Flowers. Try to grow things to attract predatory insects and pollinators. I've been pulling out some things. It's a bit crowded in this bed. Pulling out and giving away some plants because I need to thin them out. Some of the beds I thin too much, but not that one. More garlic. Music in the back. Here's two new to me varieties. Montana Giant and Rosewood. So looking forward to tasting those. For this trellis, I'm growing 4 different kinds, one at each corner of the trellis. Oh, I had something here and I pulled it and planted more seeds of something else because I changed my mind. But anyway, so those will go up and cover the trellis and make a nice little tunnel here. And I only grow a few seeds of each because I'm really at this point just comparing varieties of things, so I only sow 3 seeds. And last year I did the same thing on the trellis, planted 3 seeds, and I got between 1 and 3 plants of the 4 different varieties here and 4 varieties on the other trellis, and I had tons of beans. So that's plenty for us, what we do. So I'm looking forward to tasting all of those different varieties. I had extra parsley plants I started, so I just put them there for the caterpillars. I hope they find them. And my second sowing of cilantro, I already harvested and froze the first sowing. So that's the second sowing. And my little raccoon planter. This bed, I moved some stuff out of it, and then the seeds that I sowed to take their place didn't take, so that's looking pretty sparse. This bed gets a lot of shade, more so compared to the other beds, and stays moister, so I need to find plants that work better in that location. This is my plant of native flowers. Everything in there except for the weeds are native plants. Some came from a friend. This came from a friend. This came from a friend. Although we had some of this at the old house, so I have some of both from our old house and from a friend in there. So that's native. These are native strawberries that were actually growing wild on our property in 2 different locations. So I planted a few plants on this side and a few plants on this side, and I think that was 2 years ago. And they went bonkers. They're going crazy all over the ground. I gave some away, and then I got weeds back there I need to weed out, but they're growing really well except for some sort of, I assume that's a disease on them. I keep meaning to look it up and keep forgetting, but if anybody knows what disease that is, please let me know. Some potty things I need to decide where they're going and put them somewhere. My mossy area, I haven't been doing a good job of weeding this year and last year. Previous years I kept that weeded, and this was just a really nice moss covered area that grew there naturally, and I loved walking on that in bare feet, but now it's weedy and I need to work on that. Let's see. More plants. My bleeding heart is going crazy. This is actually a bleeding heart from our old house. So when we knew we were going to move and bought this land, we started moving some of our plants from our old house to a clearing in our woods here just to hold them over. A lot of them died, but this survived. It was doing really poorly out in our field where we had it, so I moved it here. And it's liking its situation here. It's over 6 foot wide, and that's 1 plant. So I think I'm going to move it this fall and put it in poorer soil where it can be more normal size. And I can actually use this bed for the other plants that I wanted to put in there. Another flower bed. Unfortunately, my German chamomile seeds didn't germinate, and the plants I had in there before didn't come back, so I need to put them in a sunnier location. Excuse me. I think that bed's too wet and too dry for it. These are 2 different kinds of dwarf tomatoes. I just started growing dwarf tomatoes last year, so I have plans to grow at least 2 every year. And then I have a friend that I start some plants for that grows them in pots, so we can taste a whole bunch of different varieties. So I'm looking forward to tasting them. Then I have one little lonely plant back here, tomato plant, Girl's Weird Thing, which I'm really looking forward to tasting. I started this seed much later than my other tomato seeds, and it got off to a poor start here. It just wasn't adjusting after I planted it out when it was really tiny. I was actually thinking about replacing it, but it's finally took off, and this tomato plant and one more down there, which we'll see. I also started the same time as that plant, but this one's doing better. This is an ox heart kind. I hear good reviews about this one, Brad's Black Heart, so looking forward to trying that. I'm growing 4 different kinds of bush beans. Really looking forward to this one. This one's called Woods Mountain Crazy. Woods Mountain Crazy. It's supposed to be really prolific as far as producing beans, and the beans, well, they say they hide underneath the leaves, and when you think you're done picking, you'll find tons more. They also say that when it gets too hot or too dry in the summer, that the plants look like they're dead, they'll go down, and then when the weather changes, they perk back up and then start producing like crazy again. They call it crazy because it's crazy how many beans they produce. So I hope they taste good. I've read they do, so looking forward to that. So I'm growing 3 kinds of carrots. Well, actually, no, I planted seeds for 3 kinds of carrots. One of them germinated and then died. I must have let them dry out. This one I didn't have very many seeds left, and then I had poor germination, so I only got a few plants, but this one's called Coral. I grew it last year with some other varieties, but last year was a really bad carrot year. But I did like the ones that I harvested. They tasted good, they just didn't do very well. See, I have some more weeds in there to pull. But looking forward to tasting that and comparing it with my favorite, which we'll get to. This is my favorite pole bean. It's called Carminate. Carminate. I've grown this one before, and we really like the flavor. Found it very productive, and the purple beans make them easier to find. Although when you cook them, of course, they turn green, but still, it's very, very good pole bean. I'd recommend. This is another bush bean. This one's called Wyatt. It's not really well known, but it's supposed to be an heirloom. I grew it last year. It gets really thin beans on it, which are good and tasty, but sometimes last year when I picked them, I felt like I wasn't getting as much food for the amount of effort I was putting in compared to a thicker bean. But I got them from a seed swap, and the swap host asked if I would collect some seeds to send back in, so that's what I'm growing them for this year. And while we're here, we'll go look at this one. Previously this was my favorite bush bean, and it's still one of my favorites. It's called Provider. A lot of people are familiar with Provider. Makes really good dilly beans, nice straight beans. This is another carrot variety, Yaya. Of all the carrot varieties I've grown, which I think I'm up to 18 different varieties now, this is my favorite. Well, actually, Nelson was my favorite, but they're no longer available. So there's more weeds. So this is my current favorite. I do recommend them. Snap peas. Snap peas this year I'm really disappointed with. Last few years I've been growing a lot of different snap pea varieties to pick my favorites, which is what I do with a lot of different crops. I'll grow multiple varieties and compare them, and then grow my favorite against multiple new varieties, and just keep doing it over and over to get to my favorites. And this was my favorite from my previous years of testing, called Sugar Snap, which most of you probably know. But this year I bought seeds from a different source, and they are not the same at all. This is, I think it was, is it Ferry Morse seed company? Don't buy them. Don't buy snap peas from them, because they are not the same. The ones I bought from Burpee were nice and sweet and prolific, and all the plants branched out and just created a whole bunch of vines that all produced their own pods on them. But these ones are not good, not tasty. Don't recommend. One died. It's actually 2 of the plants in there are actually shell peas instead of snap peas. They're not what they're supposed to be. I'm very disappointed in them. So I will be growing or buying Burpee seeds for this fall and next spring. Alright, more carrots. I had a different kind of carrot in here, but like I said, they germinated and then died, so then I just planted more Yaya, since it's my favorite. This is another bush bean. This is my favorite bush bean. I grew it for the first time last year. This one's called Strike. It's commercially available, so you've probably heard of it before. Strike. Very good. They almost have a cross of a bean and a pea flavor to me last year when I grew them. I really liked them. Very good. So I'm growing that. And this one are the two that are my favorites. And I'm looking forward to tasting that one for the first time. And that one I'm growing for seeds. Alright, so another tomato plant. This is another oxheart. And this is a plant, again, that I started later. 3 weeks before I planted it out, because I'm doing some experiments on how old a plant is when you plant it out and how productive it is. This one's Rebel Starfighter Prime, so that should be tasty from what I've read. Cucumbers, I've done some cucumber tests for different varieties, and this is the one that did the best for me last year. Wisconsin, was it Wisconsin SMR, where's my sign? SMR 58, I think it is. Yeah, Wisconsin SMR 58. I like this one compared to National Pickling, Boston Pickling, and some others that I've grown. Homemade pickles and some other varieties. This is my favorite so far. So we'll see if it does as well this year as it did last year. Lettuces, I had old seed. Very, very, very low germination. Very disappointed, but I guess I couldn't expect much for the old seed I planted. But the new one did okay, and the Jericho did okay, even though I sowed a lot more seeds than just the 2 plants I got from each. But it was still actually pretty good last time I tasted it. Yeah. Still good. Still good, surprisingly. I've been trying to water them with cold water to keep the soil cool, to try to keep them from bolting. And that reminds me, I didn't mention the spinach. I had tried to grow 3 different kinds of spinach here, but 2 varieties didn't germinate at all, and I only got 1 plant from my favorite variety, Gigante de Inverno, Giant of Winter is the translation. This is my favorite, but I only got 1 plant. It's bolting. I'm going to let it go to seed. And then I got some marigold, lemon gem marigolds in the center of each of these 3 middle beds. Let's see, did I forget anything? Let's see, we have an eastern phoebe nest in our basement stairwell over here, so the birds come out here and they eat a lot of insects from my garden, which is nice. There's a butterfly. Hummingbird was out here yesterday in the rain. We often get praying mantises, different species of butterflies. Don't get many bumblebees and bees. Usually we have them early spring and then suddenly they're gone, so I think somebody somewhere is spraying something that's killing them, because we definitely not spraying it here. So that's my garden. Thanks for watching.